Right, thank you, Tim, for joining us on Behind the Creator. For those of you that don't know Tim, he is the founder of 530, an SEO and content consultancy or agency. Which do you prefer?
I mean, it's just me, so it's a consultancy.
Okay, and the co-founder and creative director of PenFriend, but we'll get onto more of that later. So thank you for taking the time to speak to me, Tim.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So this is obviously called Behind the Creator, where we get to know those that are building an audience and sort of forging a career in the kind of creative economy that we find ourselves in now. So, but first off, like, where did you start? Like, what was your first job, and did you have this idea of working for yourself in mind from the start?
Okay, first job was either like paperboy or like first like actual job was, you get paid in a paycheck and not like in cash in an envelope.
Yeah.
Was McDonald's when I was like 16, and my parents were like, "You need to go and get a job."
How many stars on the badge? Did you get all the stars?
Maybe one or two. I wasn't great at it, but it was enough to give me petrol money.
Yeah, just about enough to fund going around and about. I seem to remember, like, I had the same sort of thing. I had the paperboy thing, and then I went into temping. I went into temping, and I had some god awful jobs in temping before sort of going to uni, data entry, that sort of rubbish.
Not fun.
So no. So what? So here you are. Fast forward. I'm going to guess. I'm not going to put a number on it, but a number of years, and you're sitting talking to me now, based
16.
in, well, not based in, but sitting
years.
in Canada, working on some pen-friendly things. So there's a lot to obviously cover between then and now. So what was the job that took you out on your own? Because I know you've been working solo, or you've been running 530 for a couple of years now. So there was obviously a bit of time in between that. But what was the journey to 530, and what was the sort of catalyst into that journey?
So I've always wanted to work for myself. I've always felt, as long as I can remember, wanting to work for myself in whatever capacity that looked like. I've like working for other people has always just given me a weird feeling. I've never enjoyed it. I think if I was to ever seriously consider going back and getting a job now, it just wouldn't sit well with me at all. And the first, I've had a lot of jobs where I've kind of been given these are like your job roles, these are the things that you need to do, and kind of scrunched that piece of paper up and gone, actually, no, I'm going to do this instead.
That's good attitude.
Always to the benefit of my employer, always to just like, this is what made the most sense, this is where I can apply my skills better. The first real job that I had that was a company where I was employed to do lead generation. So we were just sending hundreds and hundreds of emails every day to various websites to see if they wanted to sell their ad space for more than what Google would pay them. And I realized very quickly, with a little bit of auto hotkey and a couple of scripts, I could automate about 80-90% of my job down to roughly 45 minutes instead of 8 hours.
Yeah.
And on day 3 of my job, I went to my boss and told him I'd done this. And he went, cool, teach everyone else how to do it.
Yeah.
And I then kind of went around and built all of the scripts and had everyone like access to all of the, because they were literally like, oh, I have an email to send to someone. People were full screen opening a document, like highlighting the whole thing, click, copy, go to the start bar, pull up the email thing, paste it in and send it. Whereas I had the whole thing down to what was literally, I think, if I typed the word like send for like send email, it would just fill the whole thing and send it. So I was collecting all of the emails, pulling them all through, and then just like rapid fire sending all of the emails really quickly with it. So it was very early on that I had something that was like, oh, I can be useful outside of the things that I've kind of been hired to do specifically. And I've sort of just done that with a lot of jobs. But the first time I like really had something where it was mine to like go and do by myself was company after that. I worked for a structural engineering company, doing like modeling and that kind of stuff. And I was tasked with essentially running the thing that I built for the company as kind of this own mini business within the company. Go and find clients, go and grab people, pull them in, those kind of things. And the construction industry is run by dinosaurs. So if you're not at your desk, you're not working. No worky if not at desk.
Yeah.
So I was, So I was like, okay, cool. How do I get this in front of people as quickly as possible and without leaving my desk? So I enrolled in loads of different like digital marketing courses and found that I just enjoyed the process of doing digital marketing, that I then started my own agency, like freelancing career, in my weekends and evenings doing SEO for companies. And that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was just thinking that script and mass email send feels quite old hat now. And I guess like with the stuff that you're doing for the consultancy work with 530, that must feel, because I know that you sort of post on LinkedIn and talk about practices and sprints and really being sort of laser targeted on what you produce and producing quality at scale as best as possible, as opposed to pure numbers game, direct action stuff. It does feel quite
like when you're in lead gen, everything is just a pure numbers game. It's just, can I hit my like 150 emails today?
So how did you talk us through more about what you're doing now? Because I know you're obviously like over there doing PenFriend, but I'm assuming you're still working with clients for 530 as well, and keeping both things running.
So 530 is effectively me doing freelance consulting, advising for various companies on content strategy and building everything that they need to do in-house so that they can actually see success from content, which weirdly enough, not a lot of companies know how to do, but a lot of companies really want to do it well. And it just, it boggles my mind how some people have the titles they have and they don't understand the basics of like what makes for good content, but whatever. So I've been doing that for 3 years. So before this, I had a job where I was head of SEO for a big growth agency in London. I was there for about 5 years. Came out of the back of that at the beginning of the pandemic, and then decided, cool, I'm going to still essentially do the same job, but without a team, because I'm just going to teach people how they can do it themselves. And just take all of those processes, everything I've built over the last 10 years, I have as SOPs and very specific like processes that I then teach them and give them, and they can then go and operate it. And I kind of just make sure that these are the guide rails, stay within those guide rails and everything goes well, and just answer whatever questions they have, any advising that kind of sits around those things.
Yeah. So you're preaching to the choir here in terms of strategy and working with clients on sort of organizing things in the right way. Like there's definitely like I do a similar thing, less SEO centric, although SEO is a part of some of the work that I do with my clients too. There's definitely people in heads of content and content management roles, without naming any names for fear of shooting myself in the foot. But it's like, do you know what you could do with a little bit of help here? And I think it's probably down to being tasked with, we need to move, we've got to hit these numbers, we need content to fuel this, that, or the other, and they get stuck into that kind of activity first sort of mindset. So you've obviously, you come from that agency world, you've got your SOPs, you go freelance, start working for yourself. So now you're out in the wild west of LinkedIn and other channels of kind of like building that profile and building a business. So
Yeah, true.
what was that? What did that transition feel like? I'm gonna assume that you brought a couple of clients with you from agency world, as that always
So
seems
I
to
was
be
really
what
lucky in
happens.
that I had one client I had already that I was thinking about making the jump before leaving agency world, and I was pushed isn't the right word, more drop kicked off the high diving board.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had I had a yeah, things went awry very quickly in a pretty bad landscape. It was right at the beginning of the
Mm,
pandemic. And one of my clients for agency, they reached out and they said, Tim, what are we going to do? We still need all of this work. And I was like, I don't have my team anymore. I can't do it. I can't do all of the stuff. And they said, that's fine. Could you just teach us how to do it? And in my head, I'm like, I genuinely didn't think that was an option.
yeah.
Well, I could just teach you how to do it. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll teach you how to do it. And then I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, like, can I even do it? Can I even teach them how to do it? And I just didn't have any like formal structure on how I would do it. And they were
Mm,
really nice. I was very open with them about how I was thinking about everything. And they were just like, it's fine, because whatever we pay you is nothing in comparison to what we were paying at the agency, but we get direct access to you instead of like through all of the other people.
mm,
So it worked out better for me in the long run. I got more, they were paying less, and they were super lenient. I was like, are you okay if I just kind of use this as an opportunity to figure out how this works?
mm.
And they were super open to that. I was really, really lucky with it.
That is lucky.
And then once I had something that was working with that, during that process, I reached out to two of my old like agency clients, said the same thing. Said like, look, I realize the situation we're all in. You've lost access to what was my old team. So have I.
Mm,
I have another client that's doing this. Is that something you're open to? And all of them said yes. They were all like, yeah,
that is
come in,
good.
like teach us how to do all of the stuff, implement the processes. Because at the end of the day, they want nothing more than to own those processes themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like, and I guess also as a consultancy, like the idea is that you go in, you do the discovery, you uncover what's wrong, you fix it, you
Mhm.
upskill, and then you parachute out, right? You don't want to be stuck
Yeah.
doing the
I
doing
mean,
all the time.
I like doing all of that work first, and then what I usually do afterwards is offer some kind of like touch point advising on a
Mm,
regular basis. So every like 2 to 4 weeks, we have an hour, 2 hour long call or
mm,
whatever. And then we go in and talk about, okay, cool. What have you done? What are the problems that you've got? What are the blockers? And then a lot of the companies as well, I find those calls are really good because it's not in their best interest. They literally don't have the time to understand how algorithms change, how the landscape's changing, new practices, like how to do things better than they were doing before. And at the end of the day, it's my job to learn all of those things. And a lot of those calls are more so, okay, cool. How do we care about AI? What are we doing with AI? How do we get the
mhm.
most out of this? Can we write prompts to put blogs in that to help us repurpose stuff, because we're having problems with repurposing things. It's taken us ages to do that. And that's effectively what the majority of my advising calls are like these days, are helping companies stay up to date with best practices and just keeping the wheel going. Like, just cool, you've got the stuff that I gave you before. I've made updates to this with this client, this client, this client. I'm going to go and
Mm,
add all of that stuff in. So you have all of the new stuff.
yeah, and then I guess you've got a bank of, because you're doing that work and staying on top of developments in algorithms, and sort of getting and having those pain point questions, I guess, coming back from clients. You've got a ready
Mm-hmm.
bank of content ideas, things to build the other SOPs around, or other kind of bits of supporting content, helpful content to
Mm-hmm.
distribute on your channels. Was that how you kind of started pushing stuff out and started to build an audience? Because I'm assuming that when you left agency land, you were probably not you didn't sit there with 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, I had nothing. When I left Agency Land, I think I had like 200.
Yeah, working in
I
a
had
house, right?
like
It's like
nothing. Yeah.
yeah.
And it was, I don't know if you know him, there's a guy called Brendan Hufford on LinkedIn. I love all of Brendan's stuff.
Yeah.
He was my like content mentor for a while through a course that I was doing. And I could see the success that he was having. And I literally was just like, what am I doing? And he went, you're just not posting. He's like, and that's it. He's like, there's nothing else that you need to think about it. You literally just need to post. And the act of posting will make you better at posting. All of whatever's sitting in your head at the minute in terms of, am I good enough at this? Can I do it? Can I actually get something in place? Can I get sales from this? All sits on the other side of you doing like 20, 30 posts. So just start posting. And it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 18, 19 months ago. And it was hard. It was really hard. I remember looking at some of my numbers. I used to have this thing that I would do where whenever I had like one really good post like go well, I would look at those impression numbers. And so if imagine you did 10,000 impressions in a day. How long did it take me from day one to do 10,000 impressions total? And it was, I used to look back and be like, yeah, the start was difficult. I would do 10,000 impressions in 7 or 8 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was slow, but you have to just trudge through it. You have to get through that. And then eventually, it's weird. I have a graph where it literally just is like flat, 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 flat. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like LinkedIn pays attention. And then it starts spiking a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. And it's like, you have to get through that just crap bit at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a slog. I'm still, I feel like I'm still working through that on my own. I'm starting to get some traction, and I take a lot of inspiration from the stuff that you put out, Brendan, as well. And there's a few other, kind of known people that puts really good stuff out. Ben Goody's another. I really enjoy Ben's stuff. I also think the name of his podcast and stuff is just that little extra.
It is great, isn't it?
On the money. So like, what tools have you used? So it sounds like early days was a case of, in terms of attracting people, building an audience, trying to find work, was just a simple, I'm going to keep putting stuff out there. But were there things that you were putting in place to start tracking performance of things, to start collating ideas? Like, were you starting to use Notion, scheduling tools, anything like along those lines? Like, what did that look like?
So before I get into like tools that I was using, I'll say the one thing that made it way easier, and it's a little hokey, but it genuinely has helped me so many times with like any kind of these endeavors, is that I just saw it as an experiment to learn. I had no ties to the output. I had no ties to follow account or impressions. And you hear that all the time from people like, oh, don't look at those numbers. Like, I get it. It's really difficult to hear that. What I did was I'm a content strategist. I am lying if I tell my clients to post on LinkedIn and I'm not doing it. So I'm turning up on a daily basis to learn how to use the platform. And it turned out that like approaching it from a more fun and learning point of view just made it easier to turn up on a daily basis. And took away a lot of that sting when things didn't do as well as I thought they were going to do. Because it was like, oh, cool, I've just learned another thing that didn't work as well. Fine. And I get that like people want, oh, what was the tool that I used? Oh, I used this tool and I grew absolutely ridiculously well because of that tool. I don't think that's happened with any of it. I used Shield. One of the core reasons why I started from the very beginning and was like, I'm just going to commit to this for at least a year, was I accidentally paid for the annual subscription to Shield in a time when I couldn't afford to absolutely pay for the annual subscription to Shield. And it was, I think it was like £800 or £900. And I just went, okay, fine, I'm going to make the most of this. I'm just going to turn up and get the data and see how it goes.
Yeah.
But then about like 5 or 6 months ago, every time I put Shield on my account, now I get flagged by LinkedIn. So I don't use Shield anymore.
That's
I
interesting.
use Taplio for metrics and just to see what everybody else is kind of doing and to help with like idea generation. Their little search in terms of, I want to see people creating content in like posting, content marketing or whatever. Their search is great. And I don't think enough people give their search enough kind of like benefit in that. If you use their search or find someone that's got Taplio, bug them and say, I want to create content in this industry and for these specific kind of people, put that industry, that topic into Taplio and just find like, you'll find like the top 10, 15 creators in that space and just go comment on their stuff every time. Like that will give you so much more reach, so much more just exposure to good content in your industry than pretty much anything else that I've found. There is nothing else that I've found that is like, I only want to see the posts that are very specifically in this thing.
Yeah.
Everything else is like, these are the people who are doing really well on LinkedIn. It's like, I don't care about those people.
Yeah, because they're not industry related, right? So I'm in the and I don't know if you have the same thing, but because we're both sort of working in content and strategy and sort of enthused by it and sort of deeply in the sector, like my feed now, because I follow other content strategists and I follow other people that produce great content and is just awash with people sharing that stuff, and it's really hard to remember or to get outside of that bubble and to make sure you're thinking like, actually the people who I'm trying to reach with this like are probably not experiencing this same worldview in their feed. So that's something that I've had to learn or continuously learn and remind myself every time I log in and I'm like, oh, that's really good. Oh, that's really good. I must save that. And then I sort of think, oh, why am I posting? And it's like that persistence of like remembering that it's coming from outside. And that Taplio is a good one. Like, I haven't actually dived deep into that, so I might take that on.
I would recommend. I like Taplio. I completely agree with you though. It's really interesting. Like I was on so we did a thing on the launch of PenFriend where for all of the annual customers, the people who like believed in us and said, I want to support you for the whole year and just buy an annual subscription. I said, cool, I'm going to do an hour-long consultant call with every single one of you because you're my people. You obviously care about content. You want to make enough content for the rest of the year. I want to talk to you. I had a call with one of those guys 2 days ago, and every single person up until that point I'd seen on LinkedIn. I'd seen them either in my comments or John's comments or Inga's comments, or like I'd seen them on LinkedIn in one way or another. And this guy, I had no idea who he was. But yeah, he'd spent like $5,000 with us. He'd bought like an annual subscription to PenFriend, was like avidly using it. And I was just like, how did you find us? And he was like, I barely go on LinkedIn. I was there for, I think one of my friends was talking about something, and I'd seen that one of my old co-workers had commented on one of your posts. And I just fell into like the launch sequence that we did back in December and just immediately signed up, and I wanted to be on the newsletter and all of these kind of things. And it was much to your point. It very quickly was, I was like, there are so many people on LinkedIn that are on LinkedIn and don't comment and don't say anything. And it's so easy to get tied into that little bubble of, no, only these like 20 people matter because they're the only people who comment on my posts and they're the only people that I see. And it's like, all whilst I have 30,000 plus followers, I don't see 30,000 people every day.
No, exactly.
You never know who you're in front of and at what point, and whether or not it's like the 11th hour for them and it's just exactly what they need at that one time. It's I think that's very easy to forget.
It is. So look, before we kind of dive into into sort of like what you're doing with PenFriend, I've got a couple more questions on kind of the solo life, right? So what have been the three, what's been the three best or three worst things? Maybe we don't need to do 6, but like what's been the best and the worst thing for you about going it alone? And I think I reckon everybody's going to have the same answer to what the best thing is, but I'm intrigued to see if that plays out.
I think I could guess what it is as well. It's like not having a boss or just having the time to do things.
Yeah.
If I was to be more specific with what makes that time so good, because I agree, it's like being able to say yes when my mum is like passing through town on the way home and she's like, "Are you free?" And I can go, "Yes, I am free." And I can go and get a coffee and a pastry with my mum, like in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever, and not have to think about that.
Yeah,
I don't
that
have
is
to
nice.
tell anyone like I'm taking. Oh, I'll be back in an hour, and they're like, "Where are you going?" Like that's
cover
me.
this.
Like we're gonna go and see mum. Cool, great. It's so like I love that part. I like on a Friday, 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm just not feeling it. Cool, I'm gonna go climbing. I'm gonna go to the climbing wall, and I'm gonna climb for a couple of hours, and I'm gonna refresh, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna feel way better, and then I'm gonna jump into like we usually have PenFriend meetings on like Friday afternoons because of the time difference. I'm gonna jump into those. I'm gonna feel great, good. I think it really is like the time thing isn't just like, oh, I get all of this time, because I work more than I ever worked for anybody else. But it's more, I get to do that on my own terms.
It's more fulfilling, right? Or it certainly feels that way. It doesn't feel like you do all of it and what do you get? A pat on the back. It's like, actually, this is for me. That's what I think. Like, I totally agree with the freedom bit as well. I need to do more climbing. I need to get into that. My daughter loves climbing. She went to a soft play with the other day and had a climbing wall, and she was all over it. She's 4. She no rope. She was just off. She was just off. Had to pick her down off the top. Anyway, digress. So what do you think?
Have no fear at that age. They are just
no, they don't. I think she was just trying to get in a second ago because I'm recording from the spare bedroom. So what's the worst thing, do you think? What's the most challenging thing then, actually, like reframing that?
If I was to be super honest, it gets really lonely sometimes. Like my friends that I've known for years don't have the same problems I have. It can be really difficult to talk about those things, and they're like, "Oh no, you made it. You have your own business. You get to do whatever you want whenever you want." It's like, yeah, why do I feel guilty on like a Thursday because I don't have anything to do today? And it's like, or I have this massive workload of stuff to do, and it's a Saturday, and you're all out doing stuff, and I'm working. Like I think that there just is that weird disconnect with people who don't have those problems. And trust me, like they have their own problems. Problems I don't want. I don't want a boss. I don't want a 9 to 5. Like it is a choice. I've learned that and very much come to realize like these are my own problems that I have. Cool. I've made that choice. That's fine. It was one of the biggest reasons why I have a little Slack group with like all of the people who left my old business and various other like consultants, literally so that we can go, am I being dumb that I have this problem? And everyone else is like, no, it's okay. We all have that problem. And you don't feel as lonely anymore.
Yeah. I that was one of the, so I got made redundant at the end of 2022. We'd just done a big body of work where we were ready to press play on like all the content programs that we sort of set up and spun up and were feeling really good. And then bang, redundant, out on your own, trying to find work, trying to get a business off the ground. And like you lose that community that's, on Slack of a workplace, right? That you can just, there's all the different channels that that's just popping off all day long. And you never really feel alone, even though it was like remote first, like post-pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
It's like last year, like going through all of that, building something out, I was kind of like, shit, I feel really like alone here, like stuck in these four walls, like looking at the same computer, doing that and not having that outlet. And I made a strong pact. Like, I don't have the Slack group that you have, but I have numerous people that I've met along the way and built like really strong friendships with, that are on us, that do a similar thing or on a similar journey, and like literally have that, like the
I think
worries
you
of
need it. I
cash
think it's
flow.
probably
Or
one of the most important things to have.
definitely
Need those people who have that same kind of understanding, and like, it's not normal to have those goals as well. That's a thing I've kind of realized is like, people who want to like truly want to work for themselves and like make that balance, it's a choice, but it's a choice not a lot of people make. So you need that level of support, and I don't think enough people talk about that at all.
No.
When it comes to like doing this thing where you work for yourself and you kind of have to become like a creator, an influencer in one way or another. Like,
that's the pressure, right?
Where else are you getting those clients from? Because I tell you now, I'm not going back to my early days of sending 100 cold emails a day to land clients. I'm not doing that.
Do they still work? I mean, you must get them, right? It's like, we'd like to we'd like to set you up with your ideal clients. I was like, yeah, that would be great. Thanks. Yeah,
that would be great. If you could literally just do that like immediately, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
So let's dive into the second part of this. So let's dive into PenFriend, because I have a vested interest in it. I think it's really interesting. I think it's riding that AI wave. It's putting something, from what I can understand, and you'll probably put me straight, it feels super practical, super applicable for, you know, content teams to kind of pick up, run with, and start delivering good quality stuff at scale and those kind of results. So talk me through when the first sort of shred of that idea came to mind and how that kind of took shape, because there's a few of you involved, right?
Yeah. So it's me, John Harrison, the copywriting man, and then Inga von Orlock. Great name. Honestly, it was about a year ago, almost to the day, when Inga reached out to me to work on a project. And that project, it was a website in like an AI directory, and we scaled that site to just shy of 400,000 clicks a month in 4 months, 4 months from nothing, not existing, purely from a lot of content. And at this point, I'm playing around a ton with ChatGPT. I'm really like getting deep into trying to figure all this out, because as everybody did in January 2022, we all woke up to the memo that we would not have a job and that AI was taking over.
Yeah.
So I was like, fine, I'm gonna figure it out as much as I can and learn whatever I can from it. And yeah, it was kind of a combination of, we'd seen what content scaling could do with Inga's project, but also that was all done manually to the tune of several $100,000. It was insanely expensive to do. And we were just like, how do we do that again, but not as expensive? Obviously.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of tools coming out. I mean, Byword was one of them, Cuppa, lots of different tools that were promising, like content at scale, hundreds, thousands of articles a month. And we tried loads of them, and the quality was just terrible. It just was not great. It was like just nothing that we could really do anything with.
Yeah, not without considerable human in the loop.
Yes.
Sort of investment.
Yeah, exactly. So we started playing around with lots of different things to try and build how can we do AI generated content just better? And I think there was a lot of discussion just around SaaS companies in general, where people didn't want faster anymore. Faster was not something that we care for. We wanted better. We wanted a better output every time. And I think the realization came from, was a conversation that Ingo and I were having, where we were trying to dissect all of the different points where a human has to make a decision from no idea to publishing an article. What are all of the decision points? And we worked out that there's at least 22, 25 separate, I have to wear a different hat to make this decision versus where I was coming at it from before. I've got different information for every single time. And it became very obvious to me very quickly that the reason that other content AIs weren't great was because they were trying to do all of those 22 decisions in like 2 prompts, 3 prompts, 4 prompts, if that. So what we did is we took all of those decisions and I wrote prompts for every single one of those decisions. And yeah, so if you were to run a PenFriend article today, it takes it's at least 20, could be upwards of 35 different prompts for it to make the article for you.
So is that a human selecting that, like out of a select kind, or is that kind of programmed in? Like if I'm coming at it from a, I've got a client that, let's say, custom software development, picking one at random that I work with quite frequently, it seems, and they need a few articles on a certain topic. How does that work today? Like, I get what you're saying in terms of trying to streamline that decision making, curating prompts for that, but does that work across any use case? Like, are the decisions the same? Or like the sorry, I'll let you
Great.
I'll let you explain your own tool.
It's a really good question. So those decisions aren't like perfectly linear. We do have parts where we have AIs that kind of look at the work that's been done already and can have a see as to what the current goal is. We're trying to rank for this keyword, or we want to do this, and go, okay, cool. Our next decision then is this path or that path, depending on what's been done so far, depending on what the goal is of that content, what you're trying to rank for, those kind of things. So we don't just use like OpenAI. We have a lot of different APIs that we pull in that tell us about kind of what's going on the search results pages, what's reading articles that already exist, lots of different things, pulling everything in together for us to try and really understand why you're creating this content, what is the goal, and what do we have that we can use that get you to that goal a little bit quicker than maybe something else does. Yeah.
So you're making a lot of assumptions that the person creating the content knows what it's going to be used for.
This is true. It's a really good point, and it's something that we're actually looking to solve in like one of the next versions.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Because I encounter that a lot, that it's a case of single-use content in a without a clear structure and without a clear before, middle, after, where does it sit, what do we want people to do, what are we trying to actually accomplish with this, where does it fit in the broader narrative of us as a business as well. That's interesting, and it's funny that you're trying to solve for that.
It's a difficult thing to solve. I think a lot of it comes down to just what is the content type that best, like if you bring a keyword to PenFriend, the thing that I'm figuring out at the moment is, if someone was to take that keyword and put it into Google, what is a really deep understanding of why they're making that search? So not just the surface level, like ergonomic chair, like, okay, cool, we show them ergonomic chairs, but why are they even searching for like ergonomic chairs in the first place? Is it because they're trying to set up a really cool looking office? Is it because they're trying to alleviate back pain? Is it because they trying to prevent back pain in the future? Like, there's a lot of these different use cases that we kind of really like have got nothing to do with the business. We need to answer the person searching it first, that we can then inject those into the content before we then make the business case for it at the end of the content. Like, we need to make sure that we understand really deeply, why is that person even making the search in the first place? Why? And I think if you just take a lot of keywords at surface value, you just make really shit content.
Yeah, no, preaching to the choir again. It's true. It becomes vapid and broad, and like you said, it misses that intent completely. So talk to me. So is it open and freely available now? Like, how are you bringing it to market at the moment? Is it beta? Is it live? Like,
so it's live. It's been live since the beginning of December. We originally launched with 1 free article. You can just go and sign up and get 1. We've since changed that to 3 because we had a lot of people tell us that they had this weird anxiety of not knowing what they wanted to put into PenFriend to get something out of it for it to have like its best chance for it to be good.
Yeah.
And they sat, like, we saw in the back end, like, so many people signed up and then never used it. And so we gave everyone, even like retroactively, we gave everyone 3 articles that they could play with and told them, like, look, go and make mistakes, like, go and have a play around with it. You have more. And it was really weird. We literally saw like usage spike within the next week after sending that article, like 12,000% in comparison to where it was before, because people were just like removed of that friction of, oh my God, what do I put in?
Yeah, that's a really interesting insight, right? That's a really did you ask for that feedback? I assume you sort of pursued people who like,
I got it on a call, and we had it was, I want to say it was the one and only watermelon man himself, Neil O'Grady. We had a conversation with him, just talking to him about various things, and he was like, I just don't know what to put into it. He said to me, he was like, what can I put into this for it to show me that it's like good? And I was like, I don't know what's best for you. But then I was thinking about this as like, so many people are sitting there just not using it because they don't have a direction as to what they can put into it. And if it's wrong, they use that free credit up, and maybe we lose them at that point because we didn't give them the opportunity to try and make something that would be useful to them.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think it changes. I think that model changes again, like, as we learn these things. But I mean, it's been out for 3 months. So
how many users have you got now? Can you share that information?
Oh, I can indeed. I think total, let me just refresh it because I have it in front of me.
Does it change by the minute? that would be nice, right? Just watching that.
I mean, we're getting an average of 15 new users a day, which is really cool considering our core, like, where we sell is LinkedIn. It's only LinkedIn at the minute. Obviously, I'm building stuff on the blog and doing it that way, but we're currently at 968 users.
So you'll be at 1,000 in a couple of days then, 15 at a time.
Yeah, 2 or 3 days. By the end of the week, we'll have a little party. We'll do a little dance.
Yeah. I'll look forward to the post on LinkedIn for that.
Yeah.
But that's amazing, really, because like that's cool. It's probably a huge body of work to kind of build all of that. So how does Inga fit into this? This is purely from me being a nosy so-and-so, because she appeared on LinkedIn last year, became suddenly everywhere, and she just seemed to be making a big splash on there. So she just found you and started talking to you? Like,
she reached out with this as a project and said, I want to do something with this. And then she's essentially kind of leading the direction that we were going in. She was like head of, I can't remember exactly her title, but for all of the West Coast of the States, it was her job at Tesla to make sure that several thousand cars got delivered, like at the point when Tesla was like the most demanded car in the world at that point. So her where I'm very much like, I know where we kind of came from. I know what we did previously. I know I've got 10 years of these kind of conversations with content companies. Like, I know the problem I'm trying to solve. John is very user focused in terms of, this is what makes for a good user experience, and we need to look after them and make sure that everything's done there. Inga is like, okay, cool. Where does the business go in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years time? Like, if we didn't have Inga, I don't think we would have a roadmap. I don't think we would have a direction that we're going in. It's nice that all three of us have like specific ways of which we're approaching this problem. Obviously, Inga was also the person who had the problem that PenFriend solves in the first place. Like, we pushed all of that content. It was incredibly expensive to do manually. And she just kind of went, okay, cool. How do I make a company that solves this problem for me instead of paying someone else to do it?
So that's a proper entrepreneurial mindset, that is, isn't it?
That's Inga all over.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So would you have done anything differently, do you think, if you started this project again, if you started something from scratch again? Like, what have you learned over the past sort of, even like the first, like last 3 months, for example, you've discovered something. So what would you have done differently?
Oh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. And I think it's because I'm just still so deep in the weeds with what we're doing at the minute. But I can very clearly tell you the things I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for like John and Inga. Like, the launch would have been 2 days. By the way, I have this thing, please buy it. Not the like 15, 20 day thing that it ended up being. For me, it would have ended up sitting in some kind of like coder doc, and I'd have tried to figure it all out by myself, and it would only be available to clients. I don't think I'd ever think that it would, I would be running a like SaaS business, but also at the same time, it feels so like, yeah, of course I'm running a SaaS business at this point. Of course, like, that just makes sense. It fits so well. But honestly, I think it's because, so I did the thing by myself, running 530, and obviously I still do that. I did that for 3 years by myself, and it took a lot of, I had a lot of pushback with working with other people again. And it took, I think it took 2 very special people to really like, no, you're like, I'm in Canada. I'm literally here. Working with them. Like, we did like 18 hours yesterday, sitting in each other's pockets, like getting stuff done. I think if there's anything like I would do different, it's almost, I would get within like touching space of those people sooner. Like a lot.
That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. Right. Well, we've gone way over, I think. I could talk to you all day, but I best not, because you've got PenFriend to run, and I've got kids to get to downstairs
today.
Well, best of luck with that. Thank you again for taking the time to speak to us, Tim. Really appreciate it.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.